culture, everything, in terms of the built environment. And yesterday we got a pretty big bombshell. We were watching GMA, Good Morning America, maybe like most of y'all were watching. And yesterday they announced that Lowe's is investing $250 million.
Money, money, money,
Woo,
money.
Lord, into workforce development, into
Yes.
bringing more into the trades, and that just speaks to why we even do this show, why we even have the company Construct Reach, why we do the work that we do, trying to attract and engage the next generation of talent, because you have this aging generation that is retiring out of the industry of construction, and we're not backfilling those positions at the same rate. So, of course, we've been in this work for quite some time. We've been in conferences talking about the need for workforce development, attracting a younger demographic, how to get young people into the trades, and then just construction at large. But then now to see what Lowe's has just dropped out, to really showcase their investment into workforce development. So shout out to Lowe's.
Yes. And I think it really highlights that the opportunity is here. When crisis happens, opportunity presents itself. What? To be a systematic change agent. And so we see it right here in front of us that now we're getting a trajectory change, that people are waking up, right? And understanding within the industry that we need to be making investments, actively, right? Engaging. But another question that I've been seeing different responses to this breaking news, and it all comes down to this. Is the ecosystem, are all stakeholders that impact the talent pipeline, the industry at large, are they ready? Are the communities, right, and our community partners, are they ready for what this really, really, really means, right? Versus just writing another check. And or maybe sharing wealth, right? Sharing resources, things like that. What does it look like? How would it be experienced? How would it be actually implemented and executed? That's the question that we have.
Yeah, no, but I think that's huge, because when you think about a generational need, right? Like, it's projected that 4 million jobs are going to be available by 2031.
Yeah.
Right, that's just a handful of years.
Yeah.
So the time to be working toward mitigating the amount of jobs needed is right now, right? Trying to get people into these jobs so that they're not vacant, so that they're not empty. And that has to take place on a lot of different levels. So you need career readiness programs understanding the demand for construction, so that they are able to put them in a position to have the skill sets that the industry is looking for. You need educational institutions being able to implement construction specific education and having partnerships with the industry and getting as much exposure as possible before graduation.
Absolutely.
So that they can be in a position to step into an informed decision about the industry of construction upon graduation. You need industry employers, right, being active, marketing their companies, developing partnerships with schools, career readiness programs, community organizations, churches. You have it. Like, being able to be as ubiquitous as possible, meaning you're in the intersection of all community activity, bringing visibility and awareness, and then showcasing the actionable steps to get to where a young person or a budding young adult, or maybe a young adult, actually putting all of the steps and mapping out the process to where they could actually get that employment. Right, so the educational journey, maybe it's the certification journey, and also the opportunity as well. And then not stopping at the opportunity,
right,
but having career pathing as well.
So what you're basically saying, Paul, is that this is a multifaceted situation. And so really elated, right? I'm excited about the momentum and the movement that is happening all across the country, even globally, about what we need to be actively doing, how we want to actively engage the next generation as it relates to workforce. But what you just alluded to is that we have to bridge the gap. No pun intended.
Oh my gosh.
But we have to make the connection.
I think that was pun intended.
Was that pun intended? I think
ain't no shame in it.
Ain't no shame in that's what we're talking about, bridging the gap. But I think it echoes the opportunity that still yet is persistent.
Yeah.
Is that we need to make the connections, right? To define, to create exposure, to create accessibility so that it can yield readiness.
Yeah.
Still today, 60+% are saying, hey, we love the fact that we got some young talent, but they're not ready. Or we can't really find them to fulfill the jobs that we have.
You mean employers are saying
Yeah,
that?
employers. The industry is saying either a whole spectrum. It's like, great to have them, but they're not ready, meaning young talent or new talent, right? New entry-level talent. Or I can't find them, right? Or it's, I'm still hiring and it's been just complicated. I don't have the capacity. So you have all of these constraints that are happening with future employers of the next generation, yet we're not being intentional about it. So I'm really eager to see how programs like what Lowe's is rolling out with various stakeholders, right? What does that look like for your community, for my community, for us from coast to coast? What does it actually look like when we are on this hill, right, of the 4 million job shortage? But even today, there still is a labor shortage and retirement crisis. Like, we're living in it right now. It's impacting everyday projects. So what can we be doing right now?
Yeah, no, I think, for one, what that signals, this is probably the biggest just dollar value investment that I've seen.
Holistically, yeah.
And I think that signals like just a shift in priorities. When we started, we were talking about this looming retirement crisis. Now we're in it. We've seen certain companies come out and talk about their investments, but to the note of 250 mil, I don't think we've heard any other company invest this amount, or at least publicly, right? Since we've been doing this work. And I think it is a priority shift, because when you have like 4 million jobs, and construction is one of the industries it's an economic indicator.
Yeah.
So we judge the health of the economy based on how much construction is taking place, how much demand is out there, the need or what have you. We already have the home shortage as well. We've got so much infrastructure that we are in the works of building. You've got data centers, you've got all of this construction that is underway, but then you've got an entire generation that's aging out at a high clip.
Yeah.
So it's a huge priority to not only attract, but to develop and retain talent for this industry. And just waving a banner saying, hey, we've got all these jobs open is not enough. Right. So it's a very intentional approach that companies have to take, that essentially I would say every stakeholder within the pipeline has to take some onus and lean into some sort of responsibility in terms of how we are going to put this next generation in positions. And for one, it starts off with education. It starts off with exposure. Maybe it starts off reposturing the industry, because there's a very limited, we do this work all day, every day, and there's a very limited understanding of what a person can do from a career perspective within construction. So not only is there an opportunity for like construction specific training and education, but there's also a need for education regarding what you can do, where you can come in, and then where you can go.
The full breadth
of construction from A to Z, because that's huge. And I think we empower the next generation to really raise their hand and then begin to step into these opportunities that are available now and will be available in the future, when we could put them in a position to make an informed decision about this industry.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's very empowering when you understand what your options are, and then you're encouraged to make a decision about those options.
Oh yeah, we have to do that, right? And again, that is not just a one program fix. That is not just a 1 point fix. Like, that is to your point, everybody working in tandem, hopefully everybody working more collaboratively, right? And jointly to really address this.
Because I'm sure that they are going to like begin to partner with others. because when you invest that much, you want to make sure that you are tapping into organizations that are already doing it, and maybe it's to help amplify them, maybe it is to address other needs. But I think when you begin to see a priority shift like this from a leading retailer to begin to talk through that has a brand that resonates with construction,
Absolutely.
right? I think it's
Huge
important
supporter.
to understand that the interdependence piece is going to come into play, because it does take a collective effort, and so when you think about generational shifts, no one company, no one entity can do that alone. We have those conversations all the time, so collaboration is going to be key. And I think it's being able to really come together to make that traction, because when you come out and you say it, now it becomes promising, right? People are looking forward to it. And so I think it becomes very important for like everybody engaged and involved to make sure that they are aligned and locked in arms to see that it happens. But no, I think that's huge, because for years, you got to think construction is becoming front and center. And then I think I read that they're doing some sort of like kind of media, if you will, in terms of a docuseries.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing a docuseries as well. They're going to follow, or they
coming
have
out
followed
soon.
like 13 tradespeople, their journeys into it. And that's huge, because story is the language of the heart. So when you can pull people into a narrative, and when you can spotlight, different folks that are coming from different walks of life, they have their own circumstances, but they're looking at it through the lens of construction. Now people get a chance to consume construction just like they consume everything else via media, right? A docu-series, I think that's huge. And so I believe that's coming out this upcoming weekend. So that's going to be good to see. And it has to be coupled with that. Like, I think you have to mix in media with education and the availability of jobs, documenting stories. I mean, we do that with our I Built This events, where it's not just an event, but we want to tell a story with that. We want to show the journey, everything that goes behind the event, what it takes to make it programmatic, what it takes to make it national, how we get a chance to have 80+% interest in students that want to pursue those opportunities. And so I think that is right on par, and right on point, that Lowe's is not just announcing it, but they are already in plans, and they're working and have worked with major, kind of media outlets to put the docuseries together so that people can actually see the story of it.
Yeah, and the strategic approach, right? And what I love what they're doing within the highlight is really giving you a tangible example that the industry is no longer a failed into. It is a premier first choice. It can send you on the trajectory, right? Talking to my next generation of talent. Like, it can honestly send you on the trajectory, one, to be a millionaire, one, to be an influencer, one, to have impact on your communities, right? One, to be able to put you in a place to be an entrepreneur. So if that is something that you seek out, right, to have impact in your own backyard, construction, the built environment allows you to do that in an array of various ways. But again, sometimes when you think about the narrative of construction, whether it's safety, psychological safety, physical safety, the embracing of diversity, representation, things like that, it hasn't always had the best light. And so what I love about this project and this initiative, which I'm hoping is that it will resonate as well, of what does 2026 working in the industry look like? What does it yield? What is the journey? And how can the next generation have more visibility to it? We're talking to high schools, when we're talking to students, when we're talking to stakeholders, there is a huge gap of awareness.
Yeah.
And we just said it, in the interim of saying, hey, the full breadth of construction. But if you were to survey someone in your local community, maybe even on your block, right, in your house, like, tell me about construction, it may be skewed to maybe one or two things versus the full breadth. So how do we, again, advocate? So I think right now is a great moment in the construction arena, if you will, to be advocating for this industry, to be properly positioning yourself as a community partner and stakeholder. There's advisory boards that you can join as an organization or individual. You have work-based learning opportunities that educators are seeking out, right? But it also systematically, we, industry and educators, have to forge more partnership so that that bridge is created and that gap is closed for access and exposure.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, so I guess last year, the AGC. So if you don't know, the AGC is the Associated General Contractors of America. But they actually put out a report. So they had this report navigating transition and uncertainty, kind of building resistant or resilient workforce strategies, and they kind of had their action plan, if you will, for workforce development or workforce and HR. And so they had some of these key takeaways from success stories that they had been implementing and seeing success on. And for one, you had building youth engagement programs. Right?
Right here.
Building youth engagement programs.
Time.
I believe it was the AGC of Wyoming's comprehensive approach to workforce development. And I'll just read it, spanning from kindergarten through university. So that's playing not only the short game, but the long game.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because construction is such a milestone driven industry. We're all about scope, schedule, budget, making sure that we stay on schedule because it affects the budget, making sure that we maintain the scope because it affects the budget, and maintaining the schedule, right? So that we can get things done on time. But that other component,
that plus side.
that workforce development component is huge. And when you think about the need right now, yes, there's a need right now, but there's also going to be a need in the future. And I think getting in front of, when you look at, some of these success stories and having a program in place that's comprehensive from essentially all levels of school.
Yeah.
Kindergarten, right, all the way to university. So once they come into an educational environment, and they are very impressionable. When we think about 4 years old pre-K, we think about 5 years old, we think about 6 years old. That's when we're introducing for the very first time what a profession is.
And careers.
Right, and what a career is. And so to put construction in front of an impressionable mind, in front of a kid's mind at that age. I remember when we were in middle school, everybody seemed like they used to have that one day where the fire truck came and you got a chance to get on the fire truck and you got a chance to see, and you were just wowed by first how big it was, and then all of these components on it. It looked so much different than a regular car. What you see the firefighters with their gear on and things like that. And it was just like, it was amazing, right? But it was locked in your mind forever.
Yeah.
And so I think that is so important to get in front of a child when they're still learning about what is available. Very formative time in their life, very impressionable time in their life. And then how you show up and how you introduce construction will stay with them. And so when you start early and you maintain that engagement throughout their formative years, all the way into adolescence, when they're starting to move into middle school and then high school, and they're start to expand a little bit more, maybe be outside the classroom, having industry partner relationships coming in, different field trips or what have you, internships started to move into play. That's when now you've been able to introduce, showcase construction pretty much over the life of their youth, right? And then as they're transitioning from adolescence to young adulthood, they're more positioned to understand what's available to them. And then now they've been in an environment that is conducive to cultivating the skill sets and the aptitude that they have for the industry. And they would not have known that if they were not in that environment.
Exactly. So exposure is what? Key and essential. But also we have to put a charge on the industry. Once those students are getting exposed, right, from adolescence to career, will you be ready? Will you be ready to bring them on and to provide opportunity for them to bring their gifts and their abilities and their talents to come into your workforce, right, and to thrive? That is also an area that we need to make sure that we are shoring up, is that our industry, that we're ready, because it's happening and it needs to happen. A couple of other statistics is saying, listen, AGC also shared that over 80% of construction firms are struggling to find workers. Why? What's happening? Like, those are some questions that we need to know, right? In addition to that, there are 63 of those same companies are still trying to hire. Not only I can't find anybody, but
63%?
Yes.
63% of those companies.
Yeah, and
wow.
There's still a need. So despite the fact of the lack, I still have a need. I still have these opportunities.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, who they do find, there's a limited of those that are actually ready. So, industry, education, community, what can we do to continue to ensure not only are we having career readiness, exposure, accessibility, and an entryway point?
Yep.
Right? I think it does us no due service if we do all of this and we don't have an opportunity to place every single individual that is interested in this industry. There's got to be room somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that, we've talked about a lot. When you think about Lowe's being a retailer,
Yeah.
right? They're not a construction firm per se, but they have a large footprint. They provide the materials for the
builders.
industry, for builders.
Yeah.
But they are a retailer. A lot of our work, right, has been on the retail side where we are getting the chance to leverage and lean in to companies leveraging their construction program, because when a company wants to invest in, let's call it themselves, right? And that means expanding their footprint. That's new construction. Or remodeling their existing footprint.
Yeah.
That's remodel construction, right? They're going to employ the construction industry to help them do that. And being able to introduce construction through that lens, I think, is super important, because there's also a need to reposture it. So when a brand can lean into workforce development, the need for workforce development. Hey, if my suppliers, if my general contractors, if my design build firms are leaning into workforce development and they have a pipeline, then now that helps me as well.
Absolutely.
But I can also be a proponent to economic development by investing in that, because I know that those employers are building for me and partnering with me for my construction program. And then if you do it right,
Okay.
which we've seen, you're able to reposture construction
Yeah.
and lean into your brand, but introduce construction that way, so that you're reposturing the viewpoint and the advantage of construction. And so we've seen that work as we've been doing this for a lot of years now, but that's an opportunity for employers to begin to take an example and take this as a playbook from Lowe's and other companies that have done it as well, to showcase, okay, well, how can I leverage maybe my activity in the construction industry,
Yeah.
just because my brand doesn't resonate construction per se all the time when you first think about it. Maybe that can work to my advantage because there's a need to reposture it. So if I can leverage my brand and what resonates, then introduce construction that way, then now a young person can say, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, you caught me with that one.
Yeah.
But now they see construction, it's introduced in a new light, and I think that's advantageous. And so it's just being able to take cues and understand like where we are with that. But I'm interested to hear from the community here, like when
Drop
you
in the chat
when
what
you
you think about
see
it.
when you see companies beginning to invest that much in construction, like what do you think?
What do you think? What resonates to you? But again, it highlights the need for everybody to be involved. Whether you are directly involved in the industry, adjacent to it, a supplier, we all have an opportunity and obligation really to help ensure that we have an industry that we can continue to serve and thrive in,
Yeah.
right? And it's invested in the next generation.
Yeah. So super excited, to hear your thoughts. I'm sure this news will begin to resonate. There'll be other articles and initiatives and things of that nature, especially when the docuseries drops as well this upcoming weekend. Super excited that this type of momentum is happening, that companies are beginning to shift priorities and put money toward workforce development, getting young people in a position, getting budding adults in a position, maybe getting displaced workers in a position, right, to lean back into what this industry has to offer. So yeah, y'all, that is Bridging the Gap for today. Once again, this is Ebony and Paul. We will be back with you Thursday after next. And just continue to follow us. Like everything that we do, because we're always doing something with a purpose, and it's always for you.
And again, shout out to Lowe's for the momentum and the trajectory you set. Hopefully we're seeing more also partners throughout the industry, and those that support it continue